Adam Something, I'm clapping for you right now. I'm clapping. I want you to know that, like, the ridiculous fucking memes that you have pulled off as a presumed debunking of anarcho-capitalism, I can tell full force that that you're not interested in debate. You're not interested in intellectual pursuits. You're not interested in like anything other than just the triggering and the memes, because that's what makes you money. You're an intellectual midget, and I applaud you for engaging in your self-masturbatory playing of a video game and turning it into a bunch of memes. Oh, fuck. All right, let's get started.
My recent video, The Fatal Flaw of Free Market Capitalism, has generated a healthy amount of discussion, in some circles anyway, and so this led me to performing a bunch.
I'm already ready to watch another video. I want to see him debunk capitalism.
We need to start there first.
Right? Fucking already, this is starting off fire. Everybody gangsta till the Amazon Death Squad shows up. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. I didn't think of it that way. I only use YouTube anonymously. Yeah, fair enough.
A bunch of thought experiments, which were super fun, and so this video is the result. And just as a quick refresher, anarcho-capitalism is a stateless society where individuals are free to contract with each other and everything else is up to the free market. All the public services are privatized. And I was rather curious as to...
I mean, that's fair. No central state, true. Self-organization, voluntary organization, true. Free market, true. Public services privatized, true. I mean, it doesn't mention covenant communities, but like, I don't expect a debunking video to really go that far into the philosophy. So, you know, covenant communities is an offshoot of something that is justifiable under the anarcho-capitalist framework. Anarcho-capitalism isn't necessarily prescriptive, it's descriptive about what is morally justified and unjustified. 109% viewer retention means people watch some parts of it twice. I mean, sure, it's still just weird that it jumped up when we lost views.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. It's their shit. I was just looking at it. I was like, this is weird looking. That's not how that normally works.
To how this would work in real life.
But to be fair, I'm not a fucking YouTuber. I don't fucking know.
Now, one thing that AnCaps like to bring up to help support the viability of their ideology is the so-called Icelandic Commonwealth, which was, for all intents and
Okay, so we're starting with the Icelandic Tane system, which is not something used to prop up the ideology, is instead an example of how justice systems using third-party arbitrators can be an effective justice system, and that you don't necessarily need a centralized state authority as a means of enacting justice for property violations and crimes. It is not propping up anarcho-capitalist theory. It's simply an example from history of third-party arbitrators being utilized.
purposes, a proto-AnCap society in the Middle Ages. Now, it
is not a proto-AnCap society. There are tons of reasons why it's not proto-AnCap. I don't even think David Friedman would argue that it's a proto-AnCap society. And he,
probably not, no.
Right, he's the one that like wrote extensively about it. Kropotkin also, funnily enough, wrote extensively about the Icelandic Tane system,
which was, for all intents and purposes, a proto-AnCap society in the Middle Ages. Now, it did manage to exist from 930 until 1262/63, when the Icelanders apparently voted to ask the King of Norway to take over their country. And to quote from the Icelandic Commonwealth's Wikipedia page from the Decline and Fall section, in the early 13th century, the age of the Sturlungs, the Commonwealth began to suffer from chaos and division resulting from internal disputes. Originally, the Godard chieftains functioned more as a contractual relationship than a fixed geographic chieftaincy. However, by 1220, this form of communal leadership was replaced by dominant regional individuals who battled with one another for more control. One historian argues that the chaos and violence of this period stemmed from an imbalance of power and changes in the nature of Icelandic warfare. Whereas the number of Godar had been at least 39 in the early Icelandic Commonwealth, a few powerful families had consolidated control over most of the Godar in the late 12th century.
So again, this is why. So I guess the idea here is that the warlords and monopolization will take over in an AnCap society. And you do this by creating a historical reference that you say is an AnCap, proto AnCap society, but AnCaps don't say that. And it also isn't. It just had something that shows that third party arbitrators in disputes was an effective system for hundreds of years. That's all it is.
Now, I don't know about you, but this to me sounds awfully familiar. And my favorite part
Right. Cool. Right. We got it. You believe that capitalism causes monopolies when it doesn't.
about this is that the Icelandic Commonwealth failed so hard in the end that people ended up inviting a foreign despot to invade their land because even that was preferable to living in Icelandic AnCapistan. Now, this was
But again, right. So the debunking starts off with lies about what we promulgate, and lies about what anarcho-capitalism is, and lies about what the Icelandic Tane system was. Like this is all just obfuscation and lies attempting to tie us explicitly to a system that was only successful for a few hundred years.
Which is still longer than what America has lasted.
Right, right.
was in part a result of the King of Norway exerting pressure on Iceland for a longer time, so some might say that this is cheating and thus isn't fair criticism. But this line of thinking leaves us with three possible options as to why Icecapistan fell. Number one would be because of the Nordic invasion, number two because people were manipulated into voting for the takeover, and number three because people misjudged the situation and made their own call at the ballot box. And I have bad news for AnCaps. All these options prove my point. They show you that an AnCap society would either fall victim to a state's well-organized invasion force or get...
Except it's not an AnCap society. Like, you just took a historical reference of
feudal society.
Right. It was a feudal society. It was like they didn't have strict private property rights. The Icelandic Tane system also involved the fact that you were still under a feudal system, right? And so you might utilize other feudal lords in disputes, but you were still in feudalism. They didn't have private property rights. They didn't have self-autonomy. They didn't have the non-aggression principle as a basis for their legal system. There are tons of reasons why this wasn't AnCapistan. Like, the only reason we have referenced the Icelandic Tane system is the same reference that the same reason that we reference the Iga Sukukuiki. It's the same reason that we reference the Republic of Kospaya or Chiron or many other or polycentric Austrian society. Is that there are examples of things that are let's say more democratic or more in line with voluntarism or have some elements in them, and we can show that those elements were successful in achieving those things, and say that yes, certain elements were successful for a period of time. So your argument that things must be done this way and that it is impossible that they work at all done another way is silly and wrong and historically inaccurate. That doesn't mean that these were all versions of AnCapistan.
subverted by propaganda, or people will vote on a feels over reals basis and end up screwing themselves over.
Right there.
Because they never do that under like a state.
Right there. He admits that people will vote on a feels over reals system. The very idea of voting only works in a covenant community where there's an explicit contract and everyone agrees to that voting system. And even that isn't something that I would necessarily support, but is still justifiable. The idea that like people are all voting under a feudal system and that's somehow fucking AnCapistan is antithetical to the philosophy of AnCapistan itself, or Anarcho-Capitalism, I should say.
Brexit. And I personally think that if a country would...
And then he clears his throat and says Brexit. Like Brexit is such a fucking disaster because, you know, because autonomy is the issue here, as opposed to the fact that they voted for Brexit and we haven't got Brexit and we never will get Brexit.
Transition into the AnCap model somewhere, a military intervention scenario would be its most likely end. And it would be super convenient too. I mean, there would be no state to declare war on. There is no state. You just roll in with the tanks and announce martial law. Even if some people would resist, it would just be a handful of loosely coordinated militias, if that, against a regular army. And of course...
Well, then why hasn't Tehran been invaded? The Mexican government has an army. Like there are plenty of solutions to this situation. First and foremost, private security agencies are a portion of it. And there's no reason that you wouldn't have a retainer on militia forces or not militia forces, but mercenary forces. There's no reason that those things couldn't exist because they exist today. Like I wouldn't want to fucking fight Halliburton right now. Like you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to do that. Like your vision. The vision of AnCap is like this disparate group of villagers that like defend their property with their own guns. And like, I don't think that's what too many people are advocating for in AnCap. And secondly,
imagine us as preppers, as like those crazy preppers from the show.
And then also covenant communities will exist. Cities that have loose contracts will exist, right? Like, this system that you're imagining is that the private property owner is always isolated from other private property owners. And that's not how humans work. And that's not what we advocate. You're taking the idea of individualism and you're trying to, I don't know, like create some fantasy situation where individualist philosophy means that there's no voluntarism. I don't understand the critique here. He's already dealing with an extreme straw man that isn't what we advocate for, but he's assuming is what will be for some reason, and then talking about military invasion. Also, militias have proven to work to some degree against conventional armies. Well, yeah. But imagine the arsenal people would have without the NFA. True.
It would just be a handful of loosely coordinated militias, if that, against a regular army. And of course, if you have some kind of very powerful high-tech military hardware, you need a very complicated logistics chain to maintain it. You know, Billy Joe can't just tow a Reaper drone to...
Right. I love how he talks about the Amazon death squads, or like, you know, memes about that, while also saying like, how could an anarchist community possibly have a sophisticated logistical team? Well, which is it? Are there going to be large corporations that have the capacity to defend and attack with militaries that they support with their power? Or are these just going to be poor farming communities of like decentralized people that like have no capacity to collectively organize voluntaristically? Like, which is it? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, that the warlords are going to arise and create armies, but also that the communities won't have the capacity to do that. Doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, AdamSomething. Isn't this also pretty much what Ukraine is doing now? Literally handing everyday men an AK and fending off Russia. I mean, they have a lot of support.
Yeah, you know, NATO and America, like to the tune of what, hundreds of billions of dollars now, or around $100 billion now?
I haven't looked at the latest estimates. I know it was over 100 last time I checked. And I think the UK is actually given more per capita than anybody.
Interesting. And they're just about to not be able to afford heat.
Yeah, well, I guess they think that pushing the war forward will help. I don't fucking know. Or they think that it'll help, you know, allow people to eat the bugs. Who fucking knows? Man, I'm so glad we gave UBI and college forgiveness to another nation.
Right?
Right?
With Shaq to recalibrate his targeting AI or something. What an average AnCap commune could do at most is maintain or create small arms and crude explosives, maybe.
What? Where are you? You're just, now there's just an assumption that a small AnCap community could only maintain these things without understanding that a small AnCap community would have mercenary forces on retainer. Why wouldn't they? If I was a small community near a border region that's likely to be invaded, why wouldn't I have insurance? And why wouldn't that insurance be much cheaper if we had a retainer service on mercenary forces? Some form of voluntary collective organization to do that would likely be through insurance companies. Right? Like, it just doesn't make sense that they would be all off to themselves, because it's not in the vested interest of the neighboring community to to have another neighboring community be able to be taken over by the cartels or by fucking Canada or whatever, right? Like that doesn't make sense. You're just presupposing that the small AnCap community is entirely isolated and has no connection, trade relationships, or voluntary organizations with other communities. That doesn't make sense. That's not how it happened in polycentrism in the Iga Sukukuiki. It's not how it happened in Austrian systems. It's not even how the gypsies fucking worked. The Romana. Like even in instances that were more state-like than the ones we have, polycentric systems made sure that they connected with other communities. Insurance company fighting each other by sending their fighters to make you want to switch carriers. It's not in their interest to do that either, because then another insurance company for the protection of that interest that wouldn't do that is able to fight.
So the AnCap dream stumbles right at the starting line. And right here, right now, I could just stop bothering with
Right. So it stumbles because I made a ton of accusations and assertions that I don't back up in any way, shape, or form and pretend like this is what we advocate for.
Yeah, I mean it's really easy to knock things over when they're made of straw.
Right. I mean this is just stupid.
with all this, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper. Let's give it all to AnCaps, the most ideal scenario imaginable for the emergence of real-life anarchy.
Okay, so now we're gonna hear AdamSomething's Steel Man. So like all these towns and villages would organize and pay for this fee for these mercenaries and border enforcement to like a centralized organization. We would call it a state. Peacecraft, that's intentionally stupid because first of all, it doesn't need to be centralized. Number one, that's not what I stated. Number two, I didn't state you missed the voluntary or involuntary distinction, right? Like, so when you're talking about competition in the marketplace and you're talking about free voluntary association, like, yeah, you need to defend borders. You need to defend property. If you call that a state, well, welcome to leftist anarchist philosophy that's fucking stupid, where they live in the utopia where, you know, no organization is necessary, but nobody also doesn't have a right to not work.
Anarcho-Capitalism, an imaginary world where every country transitioned into anarcho-capitalism at the exact same time, all corporations were completely dissolved, all nuclear weapons were disarmed, and all complex military hardware beyond small arms was disposed of.
I mean, sure, if you want to envision a utopia, that's not steel manning our argument. That's just creating a utopia and then putting your straw man anarcho-capitalism into the utopia that you created.
Also, why would advanced military hardware need to go away?
Right. We want advanced military hardware. And why would we want denuclearization?
We'd be like trying to get into space and like we'd probably need explosives and things like that for dealing with asteroids and shit.
Some existing corporations may need to be dissolved in the process because many of them maintained and got their property via state violence. But we also don't need to dissolve all corporations. That's stupid. And also, awesome. Simultaneously, the globe transitioned into anarcho-capitalism. Awesome. I'm happy for everybody. It's not a necessary component to anarcho-capitalism succeeding as a community, but like, I guess that's cool.
You have is people living freely with their guns, ready to enter into voluntary.
Also, free people living off of the land. What is this weird feudalism that you keep injecting into anarcho-capitalism?
Yeah, everyone seems to think we want to all be like in like a hippie commune, just like growing a little subsistence garden and like scratching out a living. No electricity, the outhouse set the perfect distance away for both efficiently getting to it at night and also not infecting the house with that stench.
Right. Like, hey,
like, I don't know.
attorney.
I like running water.
Hey, attorney.
Cool.
Yeah, it just this isn't like everything that he's setting up is he's setting up. What if the world transitioned to this like feudalist state or not this primitivist state? That's not what AnCap argues. So again,
It sounds like Thomas Jefferson's dream, not ours.
So just as I got that joke and that was rough. So just to recap, first we lie about proto-anarchism and the Icelandic Tane system. Then we lie about voluntary associations and military. And now we're going to steelman anarcho-capitalism by lying about it being some primitivist philosophy. Do you buy Trump's recent claim about storing classified documents in a Chinese restaurant / bowling alley claims about George H.W. Bush? Fucking what? I haven't heard this. I don't fucking follow Trump religiously like the left does because I don't care. He's a narcissist, and so, you know, he tried to do the right thing. He did some good things. He was a better president than Biden could ever possibly be, but like he's still like a D- or high F as far as I'm concerned.
We still love you. Have you on the show though, Mr. President.
Right.
If you ever want to delve into Twitch, we'd love to just see you on here.
He claimed the former president stored millions of documents in a Chinese restaurant. I mean, I'd have to look and see what the evidence for that is. I would, dude, presidents have done so much wild shit. Like that wouldn't surprise me. Whether or not it's true, I mean, it sounds wild. Like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? Christopher Hitchens that's kind of his what is it? Hitchens law that he created to debate Christians that like presuppose the existence of God. It's like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's an extraordinary claim. I think it requires extraordinary evidence. I'm not going to simply say it's untrue because I don't fucking know. There's zero evidence. I'll save you time. I mean, fair enough. We've confirmed evidence of Clinton, Obama, and Pantsuit Clinton all placing classified information in the wrong locations. Pantsuit 1 was not a president, so it was an actual federal crime. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
All you have is people living freely with their guns, ready to enter into voluntary contracts with each other,
Also,
having inherited all...
Can you koalas? I thought they were like really mean.
Yeah, please don't hold koalas. I think this is like probably a book from like one of those like children's Christian books. You remember these? Like, you remember when you were a kid and you got those children's Christian books and they would have like...
I didn't have books like this. We had Veggie Tales.
Well, maybe I'm a little bit, or maybe I was a little bit poorer and I'm a little bit older. But like, I got these books from like my parents went through this weird fucking Jehovah's Witness phase.
These books being in, I remember these books being in thrift stores though, for sure.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what this is. And then he just put AnCap balls on their heads. But like, again, all infrastructure inherited from the government era. That's a cool way of saying that, like, you know, we got property that engaged in an era of government, but like, we're not anti-government, we're anti-state. And also, like, corporations are a form of government, but I guess you dissolved all corporations. I don't know what this steel man is supposed to be, but it doesn't describe anarcho-capitalism at all. Like, we're engaging in like weird fucking straw mans that are so far gone at this point that they're just like this seems like more of a thing for like anarcho-communism or anarcho-primitivism. Like, this isn't what AnCaps advocate for or talk about at all.
Yeah. I mean, the Italians have the aqueducts and the Roman roads. Fat lot of good it does them. You see anyone driving on those still?
Yeah.
Getting their water through the aqueducts?
That's a bad idea.
All the lead, yeah.
That's a bad idea, yeah. A lot of lead, boys.
You could replace the lead.
You know what? I kind of want to know, is there more lead in the Roman aqueducts than there is in Flint, Michigan? Just curious.
I think that's gonna be close.
I don't know. I'm just curious which one has a higher lead content. I don't know. I'm just curious.
The Romans built thick pipes.
All right. Were built out by the now dissolved governments and everyone getting a fresh start at capitalism. So I believe that
the Great Reset is you. The Great Reset are the fucking Marcusian socialists, not fucking AnCaps. Nobody's asking for the fucking reset of all capitalism. Like, what is this? What even is this video that's supposedly debunking anarcho-capitalism? It's yet to talk about anarcho-capitalism.
That this would be a perfect or at least near perfect condition for anarcho-capitalism. So how will things work out?
Okay, so this is the perfect condition for utopian philosophies like ANCOM. And ANCOM's still gonna fucking fail, but that's okay because the AnCaps will be there to trade with them and fucking take all of their children when their children want to escape the fucking hellhole, and eventually they'll figure it out. Sean Hannity reportedly played a voicemail from his dad calling him a piece of shit Monday to demonstrate what a healthy father-son relationship sounded like. What?
I mean, good luck, Sean. I don't know.
I don't know. I saw some Fox News thing where like it were like Hunter Biden and like Biden were like, and they had quotes on the screen. I didn't give a fuck to look at the context, but like apparently like Biden was telling his son, like, you know, I'm here if you need help. Like you have a problem. Like, you know, I support you, blah, blah, blah. And apparently people are saying that the Republican or that the Fox News people were saying that's not what a healthy father-son relationship looks like. And from what I saw at first glance, it just looks like a dad that wants to get help for his fucked up son. But like, I didn't look into it because I just don't care. I don't care about the weird drama, boomer drama that fucking between like Fox News and like CNN feuds. Like, I just like it's not news to me.
Or at least a near perfect condition for anarcho-capitalism. So how will things work out? Let's take a look. Wait, what's this? Oh, that's right. My channel has been taken over by Vladimir Putin. Okay, it hasn't been actually taken over, and these folks are actually anti-Putin, and they are the sponsors of today's video. Boney Right is a YouTube channel that dives into all kinds of topics.
Look, I fucking hate AdamSomething so far, and in all interactions I've had. However, when we watch other people's content, we play their ads. That's like, we don't skip past their ads. So I will play their ad out of respect to them because fuck it. We're utilizing their content in a certain form, and you know, they got ads. So fucking whatever.
Taken over by Vladimir Putin. Okay, it hasn't been actually taken over, and these folks are actually anti-Putin, and they are the sponsors of today's video. Boney Right is a YouTube channel that dives into all kinds of topics and gives you a deeper look into things such as why prices have suddenly risen because of the container shortage, or how the chip crisis is affecting us all. Their latest video is a personal investigation into Russian vaccines, whether they even work, and what exotic difficulties Russians must endure if they want to get vaccinated. It's some high quality content with great animations. No wonder their Russian language channels have more than 1 million subs, Jesus Christ. Don't worry though, Boney Right is in English. You'll find the link in the description. Thank you for checking out Boney Right. Ads like this help support what I do. And now, back to AnCapistan.
Okay, so yeah, super capitalism. Here's the link to the video if you really want to go check out the fucking Boney Right thing and be my guest. I do love I like Mark always says, you know, the most capitalist people are socialist and communist Twitch and YouTube streamers.
Yes, I have said that before, or something to that effect. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue to the straw man of a straw man.
Our little simulation will have two relevant parameters. Number one is that everybody will act according to their rational self-interest without exception, and number two, there will be no Deus Ex Machina type situations, meaning everything will develop organically as a logical continuation of the events that happened before.
Okay, so now we're going to go through a simulation of what would happen in this weird feudalist AnCapistan scenario that he has set up, where for whatever reason, the nukes have gone off, World War III has started, and we're all starting fresh, farming off of the land or some shit.
So Fallout. Gotcha.
I think most capitalists are woke people. I need that extrapolated.
I think what he's saying is, I think the people who are behaving the most capitalist are the woke people, because they just like everything's about money.
Well, it's because they're grifters, because it's not a logically consistent ideology, maybe. Who knows?
So over here we have a network of smaller settlements, each operating their own basic infrastructure, just like during medieval times. In these settlements, eventually some...
Yeah, there we go. Slipping it up, making it just like the Dark Ages. That's what we can equate this to. It's all about feudalism and the Dark Ages.
Right. So right from the very beginning, we're a couple of seconds into his simulation. And for some reason, No companies exist that are attaching all of these people. No voluntary organizations exist that are like, you know, that cross these boundaries. They're all self-sufficient and independent feudalistic states. This isn't anarcho-capitalism. So from the very onset, we have something that is like individual communes that for some reason are isolated. That's not what we advocate for. That's not what we do.
Some people start getting more successful at capitalism than others. Let's call them great men. And we'll be focusing on one of them, this fellow called Billy Bob, living in the town of
Oh, okay. So we're doing the Billy
now
Bob
we're gonna
thing.
make them redneck hicks.
Got it.
Going back to the Wild West.
Well, it does have its own little water system, but the water quality is not the greatest. It's drinkable, but it tastes kind of funny, and if you have any sort of stomach problems, it just tends to make the problem worse. Now, Billy Bob runs a saloon in town, and he thinks the water quality is hindering his sales because it makes his liquor taste worse. And to help run his business smoother, using his knowledge of distillers, he puts together a water purifier so he can disconnect from the local water system and save money, and also have better tasting liquor. Now, his water
Okay, so that's fine.
This guy sounds like a smart cat.
purifier ends up being a success, able to produce large quantities of water with a low energy cost, which is somewhat even better quality than the water from the system. Now he produces more water than he needs by a considerable margin, so he starts selling it off to people. With those profits, plus his increased revenue from liquor sales, he puts together a second machine in his free time. This time he works out some of the bugs, and the new machine turns out to be slightly more efficient and produces even better quality water. He now sells a lot of water and makes large amounts of money. Now Billy Bob is forward.
Okay, all right, nothing wrong there.
It seems like a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Thinking and keeps reinvesting his revenue back into his business. With his profits, he buys a plot of land behind the saloon and builds a huge water storage tank. He also builds out pipes to the farmlands nearby and starts selling his water to the farmers. With his increasing profits, he hires workers to build and maintain water purifiers. Soon enough, he has enough capital to offer a handsome amount for the local water system. The owners like his offer and sell him all their infrastructure. After all, they weren't making as much money on it anyway, they didn't really know what they were doing, the water quality was bad, they had a large maintenance backlog, and most people in Ainville just went on collecting rainwater and boiling it anyway. So they are more than happy to just pull the
What? I mean, like, I have no issue with this, right? But like, why is AnCapistan like this place where everyone's boiling their fucking water? Like, why are we starting in fucking feudalism? I don't understand that, but like, sure, everything thus far.
Actually, no, he said we should have started off with all that government era infrastructure. That would include water purification plants.
Right. So, I mean, he's failed to represent his own fucking utopic reset fucking thing. All right, cool.
The golden parachute and get rid of all their problems and go on to do something else. Following the acquisition,
I mean, like, for whatever reason, this town had all of this infrastructure but had bad water. I'll accept all of those circumstances.
Let's just say this is Flint, Michigan.
Right. Like, whatever. All right, cool.
Billy Bob founds the Bill and Robert Water Company. Now everyone in town is his current or potential customer. Billy Bob has his workers connect his purifiers to the system, filling the pipes with his water. He also spends on maintenance, replacing rusty pipes and leaky valves, which increases the water quality and reduces water loss. His customer base starts to grow rapidly. People happily sign a contract stating that they'll get the water cheaper than under the previous owners and at a guaranteed higher quality. They can also disconnect from Billy Bob's pipes for the equivalent of $1,000 as a service fee, but why would they? The water is cheap and great. As time goes on, other
Okay, fair enough. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone is going to do that, and automatically you would have competition. If you have a
there was a market for this, they would just figure out how to make their own distillery.
Right, like the idea that every single person is going to sign up for this contract in the entirety of the town with a $1,000 service disconnection fee, assuming that we're dealing in like today's value of money, a ton of people are not going to want to sign up for a contract for clean water. If they stop buying the water, they have to pay $1,000, right? Like automatically you would have competition right here. But I mean, but But let's continue with this simulation that has already gone off of the rails and assumed economic conditions that don't exist in a society that has all of these weird parameters. And for whatever reason, there's no possibility of like connection with other towns and those other towns having water supply as well. Right. So this is already very far away from anarcho-capitalism and also very far away from what it is that we advocate for, and very far away from like the reality of what would occur, because you're supposed, you know, steel man of the situation for anarcho-capitalism is a bunch of things we don't fucking advocate for, but that you think make your simulation easier to like prove anarcho-capitalism wrong. So like we could stop now because he already has unaddressed issues with the competition in the market. This demonstrates the failure of the central planner due to the economic calculation problem. Unrelated, this amazing fragrance just released.
They want $100 for this shit?
Burnt hair. Well, it's boring companies, so this is fucking...
Go down.
Just like leaning over a candle at a dinner table, but without all the hard work. Stand out in a crowd, get noticed as you walk through the airport.
I don't know. I thought those were a little fun.
Fucking musk. Oh, God. It's a musk, all right. I'll give him that.
Old elongated muskrat at it again.
No, I just meant musk like cologne.
No, I get that. It's just he also founded the Boring Company.
Yeah.
$1,000 a service fee, but why would they? The water is cheap and great.
And so we already established why they would and how a free market actually works, as opposed to this idea that everyone, for whatever reason, will just simultaneously sign up for a contract that has $1,000 service disconnection fee. So already you would have competition in this market.
Time goes on, other people try to get in on the water business too, offering their own water from their own purifiers. Only a few...
All right. So there we go. So some people have got into the business because this person has created this negative kind of, I don't know how you would put it. It's not a negative externality, but it is a weird thing to put in a contract.
Few people switch over though, since Billy Bob's water is reasonably priced and of high quality, and there is a $1,000 disconnect fee which nobody wants to pay. But then a true prodigy appears, an even greater man who creates a water purifier that's even better than Billy Bob's. Worse, he starts selling the water from it, and some people actually...
Really? You went with Edison, someone who like was known to steal patents?
Right? It's kind of interesting, but fair enough.
And they are very satisfied with the water. It's even cheaper and even better quality. And this even greater man even starts making some money on his business, sucking away profits from Billy Bob. Now Billy Bob gets word of this, so he visits this prodigy personally and offers to buy out his business, but he gets rejected. Now the actions of this prodigy directly threaten Billy Bob's business. He must neutralize this threat as soon as he can. Billy Bob goes on to use his considerable wealth and leverage to artificially lower the price of water even below the...
Oh my God. Is going to artificially lower the price of water. This has never worked in history, right? Like people attack fucking Standard Oil for doing this, and all it did is bring more competition into the marketplace. More people started creating water purifying business.
So Standard Oil was able to charge that low because they made a new and better process of refining the oil and extracting the kerosene from the residual waste.
Right.
So like that's the real reason they were able to put the price that low.
Right. But people accuse them of doing this in areas, and in some areas they did do this, right? They had tried to do this. It failed because people started creating factories in order to process kerosene just to sell them to Standard Oil. And this financially hurt Standard Oil, and eventually they stopped this practice because it was cutting into their profits and actually caused more people to come into the marketplace, because by artificially lowering the prices, you created a market void where you could gain more profit by attempting to counteract the effect that they're trying to do by getting rid of their competition. It doesn't work.
The competitor's price. Although he goes into the red somewhat, he has enough money stockpiled to survive. The Prodigy less so by virtue of being a small business. He also has to lower his price to compete, otherwise nobody would buy water from him. His customers
Some people would absolutely buy water from him no matter what, just on principle alone, because this guy has $1,000 disconnect fee, number one. That's just number one. The fact that this person's trying to crush out other businesses is an incentive for other people, even with the lower quote unquote profits, to do certain things, right? To create water purification systems, to attempt to sell to Billy Bob's water purification company, etc., because they know that this person is trying to price out the market. Like conglomerates break. OPEC tries to do this, and it fails. With obviously we're both looking at a product that is incredibly elastic here because people are going to want to buy water no matter what. But by lowering the prices, you decrease the incentive for people to think that they can make profit off of the business itself, but you increase the incentive that people would want to create those businesses just to sell to you.
start to dwindle, many switching back over to Billy Bob, who announces a $500 water coupon bonus to be given to all returning customers. After months of losses, the Prodigy is at the end of his rope. He spent every bit of money on keeping his business alive. He sold absolutely everything he could, now living on the barest of necessities in an empty apartment, perhaps 1 month away from eviction. At this point, Billy Bob...
Hey Mark, can you find that Standard Oil thing that we talked about not too long ago so we can show it? Because I think it does a better job of explaining this process.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
When we did a whole stream, this was like a year or two ago, on Standard Oil, there was an article that was describing like the myth of Standard Oil. I'm sure you can find it quickly, like not in a couple of minutes. I just don't want to do it on stream and take away from stream. We can do it on stream. I don't give a fuck. We're both looking for it. It's a pretty good article. Let me get some music. Fuck it. We'll both look for it. I'll look on Google.
Oh, was it? I have one from Mises, one from FEE, the Mackinac Center.
I think there was one that had like a really good breakdown list of like why the economics of it doesn't work, and it was super interesting.
I don't remember that one.
I want to say it was like nine points or something. It was something like that. Standard Oil, myths, monopoly. Let's just see what we find. Yeah, this one's not the one I was looking for. Derp. Duke Law. Oh God.
Was the Glass-Steagall Act at the time?
No, I don't think so. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. Reed did this one. It's the one from the Mackinac Center. Mackinac, sorry. The larger predator firm stands to lose them both. Quote, to lure customers away from somebody, he, the predator, must be prepared to serve them himself, wrote McKee. The monopolizer thus finds himself in the position of selling more and therefore losing more than his competitors. Because if you're going into the red, you go into the red at a higher percentage than the other people that are going into the red, right?
Where was Shadow Warden? He should have remembered this article. He was there.
Right. That untenable situation is further aggravated by the fact that at lower prices, consumers stockpile the product, putting off the day when the predator can cash in by raising his prices, right? So because they know that this is occurring, they stockpile the resource, which is water. They get water tanks of some sort and they store all of this clean water. At about the same time Rockefeller was the dominant oil refiner, Herbert Henry Dow was jump-starting the Dow Chemical Company in Michigan by turning the predatory price-cutting theory on its head. German manufacturers backed by subsidies from the German government dumped cheap bromine on the American market in an effort to run Dow out of business in the early 1900s. Unbeknownst to the Germans, Dow simply employed agents to buy all the cheap bromine they could get their hands on. He then sold it at a much higher prices, prevailing in other markets in direct competition with the Germans, who eventually threw in the towel when they saw how their attempt to make Dow their prey was actually making him rich. The Dow story is one that predatory price theorists never talk about because it utterly undermines their entire case. Consumers will increase their purchase at the quote bargain prices. We kind of that's evident there. Competitors reappear when prices rise. A firm that embarks upon predatory price cutting never knows how long it might have to incur losses before its rivals vacate the market. But one thing is for certain: the higher prices the predator supposedly will charge when he thinks he's won the war will attract many of those rivals and many new ones as well back into the market. Right? So in order to gain that profit again by that monopoly, you have to increase your prices from price cutting before. And that distribution of increasing prices after you've engaged in this predatory action means that you're drawing more competitors into the market. So even though this great man might get bought out and have a better system, etc., once you come back into the market, you're going to have to increase prices in order to offset the losses that you took. And those increased prices mean that you've artificially raised the prices with your monopoly, and thus other people want to get into the market. And these are just a couple of things, but if you want to read this whole article, it was one of the many articles we were looking at, but it just kind of shows that like this doesn't actually work. Like, yeah, you might be able to crush this specific guy. And again, for whatever magical reason, the capitalist system is devoid of any connection to all of these other communities. Remember that at the very onset, he created AnCap to be separate from other anarcho-capitalist covenant communities, organizations, etc., and for there to be no business crossing, no trading or anything else, which isn't what we advocate for at all.
Equal though, right? They're separate but equal, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Bob visits him again and makes a new offer: a very pretty sum of cash for his business and a lucrative upper management position within the Bill and Robert Water Company, together with a
Oh, no. The anarcho-communism there wasn't a slip. I was making fun of the fact that he set up all these little self-sufficient farming communes as opposed to like actual anarcho-capitalism.
For his business and a lucrative upper management position within the Bill and Robert Water Company, together with a luxury executive penthouse. He would also have access to a very generous innovation fund which he can use to invent even better water purifiers. And this time he doesn't have to worry about not being able to pay the bills if his inventions prove unsuccessful. Billy Bob takes all the financial risks and the prodigy is free to unleash his creative genius. What's better, for every innovation he gets a huge bonus, with the added caveat that all of them will be the property of the Bill and Robert Water Company and cannot be made open source. The prodigy has
Right. So this denies any other competition in the market and assumes that what the natural conclusion is that the prodigy goes towards the guy who intentionally drove him out of business and intentionally did everything he can to fuck him. And then we're supposed to just trust that this person's going to
coming up with another enemy.
Right. It goes against human nature. I mean, it's possible, sure, but it's far more likely that this guy tells him to go fuck himself because he doesn't trust whatever contract he has. He's ruined his trust by engaging in these predatory practices to crush him as a competitor. What's far more likely is that he sells his business, sells whatever technology or something if he has to, and he sells it to a competitor. And that competitor is like, fuck that guy, let's team up against that guy. And then this other person now has to deal with someone else with capital as they've artificially lowered the prices. And this cycle continues. And all that happens is that he goes red. Like, this goes against the market. It doesn't, like, this isn't how markets work. He also assumed people would readily accept a natural monopoly provider without any backup, even though they have all their resources to invest. Exactly. Like, it's very easy for a competitor to come into this that has capital that can fight this person, that doesn't have to artificially lower their prices, because the moment he gets into the market, he has to raise his prices to deal with all the red he went into. And they're far more likely to get the genius because they're more trustworthy. And other people aren't going to want to go with this company that has this $1,000 shutoff fee. There's a video. Academic Agent has a video on monopolies. How long is it? We might check it out.
To make a choice. He can refuse, go broke, get evicted in a month, and sleep under the bridge wrapped in a filthy blanket, hungry and sick, torturing himself with the thought of the dream he lost. Or he can continue his life's work of inventing purifiers and fulfill his dreams in a position of prestige and wealth, high salary, luxury penthouse, generous bonuses, freedom to innovate, and all he needs to do for this is sign the dotted line. And
what microcosm of anarchism of capitalism you've created here, where there's one guy and there's no competition except for this one guy who entered. That's not how capitalism works. Like he's assuming natural monopolies arise, and therefore he's going off of that assumption to try and explain how the market works, and that's not how the market works. And also, less, we have to constantly remind you, he failed to distinguish what anarcho-capitalism was in the very onset.
he does. He becomes general manager of the Bill and Robert Woodrow Company, gets a beautiful penthouse where just the bathroom is twice as big as his entire previous apartment. As promised, he gets to tinker with his designs on the side and gets huge bonuses for his work. He becomes a respected member of the community, and everyone admires him for his talents. And Billy Bob...
All right, so in order to just follow down this stupid rabbit hole, we're going to move forward with the caveat that this has already been defeated multiple times, because he's already not been able to adequately explain how capitalism works, how a market works, or what anarcho-capitalism is. But we still have to go through this video so I can react to like whatever other straw mans exist.
Right.
But understand that this is already a stupid video that doesn't debunk anarcho-capitalism.
Bob now controls the town's entire water market. He stops the price dumping and returns to making massive profits, now even more since the prodigy helps increase the efficiency. With his innovations, that is. But aside from doing his business, Billy Bob also likes to read. Mainly about great men in the past and what they did to succeed. He comes across the idea of buying out as much of the production chain as possible. The chain that supplies the business, that is.
Again, so now we're engaged in the same predatory practice that you buy out the oh my God, that you buy out the infrastructure and you buy out the competition, except that doesn't work. So we're engaging in the same straw man of how markets work, again, by him having to purchase companies, presumably at a gain to the voluntary owner of said companies, right? So if I'm producing something and then you offer to buy me out as a means of trying to control the production, that means that you have to make me happy, which means you have to buy me out more than the profits I'm already doing. So your purpose is to purchase me out at a higher rate than the profit I was already making, so that it's economically to my advantage to do so, in the assumption that no other competitors come into the market. But the problem is that by buying me out at a higher rate, you've already artificially increased your prices, which means that you've created a market void for other people to make additional profits by getting into said market. So this is just a fundamental misunderstanding of how economics works. If a guy has to buy me out of competition, then I'm going to keep creating companies for him to buy. That's exactly what occurred with Standard Oil. That's exactly what has occurred multiple times, is that other people will want to get into the market because they know that the profits are artificially increased and that they can undercut you and still make more of a profit than the previous people were making. So you've incentivized more competition. And on top of that, you've incentivized people to create facilities or means of production just to sell it to you because you're afraid of competition. Like, this guy is engaging in terrible business practices and is going to go out of business. I don't know how he's still afloat, because he's making horrible business decisions over and over again. And there should already be a thriving market of competition to go after this guy. Plus, nobody's going to trust this guy because he's a piece of shit.
It's really good water, man.
Other towns and people from those other isolated communities are going to start selling fucking water. Like, this is just bad economics.
So Billy Bob might be selling the water, but it's not his company that manufactures the pipes or mines the ore to smelt the metal or makes the parts for the purifiers. And so he goes on to acquire as many of these enterprises as possible using the same tactic, offering management positions and large salaries.
All right, so he's trying to isolate a vertical and horizontal monopoly, and AdamSomething is working under the assumption that by increasing profits, it doesn't increase the incentive for new people to get into the market. So this is just basic.
You're just too dominant. There's no way for you to get in once you hit a certain level. You're just able to coast.
Right, exactly. Like this is just a fundamental like you don't understand anarcho-capitalism, but you also don't understand capitalism. Like this is just dumb.
By the time he's done, he can build out a water supply system from scratch just using his company resources. He now owns mines, foundries, machine building workshops, and optimizes their production for his goals. Those enterprises might suffer losses due to this, but the water company gets materials much.
Where are these infinite fucking losses that this guy just keeps fucking taking, that he's just but he's just so rich now because everyone's using his water magically? Like, no, dude, like you
No, just this one community is using his water.
Right. And he's just got unlimited fucking resources to constantly go into the red because later he can increase profits and somehow won't introduce competition. Like this is just bad economics to try and explain.
He's got that Visa Platinum.
Right? Like
an American Express Premier.
For his goals. Those enterprises might suffer losses due to this, but the water company gets materials much cheaper and the gains far outpace the losses, which Billy Bob of course ends up cross-subsidizing. But Billy Bob doesn't.
How do they get things cheaper? Like explain to me how they get things cheaper. You just make the assumption that because there's like he thinks that like every company has like excessive profit, and that by purchasing the means of production, the profit motive or incentive is then lessened, right? So this is what happens when your economic theory is based off of shit leftist philosophy, is that he thinks that these companies that are in competition are gaining too much profit, and that the savvy capitalist can come in and get the products cheaper by owning those things. But the market sets profit. The market does not, like, people think that profit is set by the capitalist. That's not how that works. The market sets profit when there's a free market. The only way that the capitalist is able to set profit is when they have a monopoly. And a true monopoly, can only be granted by a state. So this idea that you actually get these products cheaper because you purchase those businesses at a loss is not only not true, it's the reverse of true, because you have to buy out your competition, which means you have to go further into the red, which means you have to gain more profit, which means you have to increase the price of goods and services. So as you keep going into the red and as you keep increasing price, the market demands a cheaper price. He also assumes no one is self-sufficiency freak that is well and other water collection. He means there is economy of scale. Yeah, except it's just wrong.
Stop there. Outpace the losses, which Billy Bob of course ends up cross-subsidizing. But Billy Bob doesn't stop there. He becomes obsessed with control. He now owns all of his production chain but decides he wants more. But what else can he acquire? Well, the other end, of course. His biggest customers are farmers who use his water for irrigation. With Billy Bob's advanced irrigation systems,
guys going full Hideyoshi.
What did Hideyoshi do?
I mean, he invaded China, but like he just kind of became obsessed with becoming the shogun.
Oh, you mean just like the guy can't like sit on his laurels?
Yeah, no, he's just like, now I've got to conquer more and more.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, like presumably people would do this. The fact is that this guy would have gone out of business long ago.
Who uses water for irrigation. With Billy Bob's advanced irrigation systems made by his foundries and workshops, the farms grew to the point where they could not sustain themselves with their own wells anymore, and so they became dependent on Billy Bob's water. But hey, it's a great deal, so they're not complaining. Billy Bob found...
What is this non-competition in the market and this great deal? Like, you already set up shitty deals from the onset and high prices. Like, it's not a great deal. It's a bad deal.
The Bill and Robert Agricultural Company and starts buying out all the land plots around Ainville. His tactics are the same: offer the owners generous terms and occasionally a high position and lucrative salary. If Billy Bob deems the owner to be a potential valuable addition to his...
So now what you're doing is you're just going to go into the red again magically with all these profits you're getting and no competition, and you're going to manipulate the housing market by trying to buy up all the property, and holdouts are going to realize that they can get more money for their plots of land because you're trying to buy up all the land. This is why corporations don't buy individual homes. To this day, they don't buy individual homes. There's this myth that like BlackRock and like Vanguard are like buying up people's houses. That's not how it works. BlackRock and Vanguard go to construction companies and purchase entire neighborhoods, because if they try and go house to house, what ends up happening is there are holdouts in the neighborhood, and then they can't actually control the neighborhood because there are holdouts from people that are like, oh, my property's only worth $250,000, but what's it worth to you, guy who's going into the red buying all the houses in the neighborhood? Sounds like it's worth $500,000. And so it's a massive loss for these companies to attempt to buy houses at an individual rate. Instead, what would make far more sense is Billy Bob would build a fucking neighborhood over here and then start selling those homes and get into the real estate market, like, and try and get more people to come into town. Like, it doesn't make sense for him to even attempt to do this, because he's just going to artificially inflate the housing market, which is going to cause him to go even more in the red. But for whatever fucking reason, no legitimate competition is entering the water. And we already set up all these other communities that obviously have water systems where people might move to, that might compete, that might set up, that might have their own forms of capital, etc. Like, he's assuming that the free market already doesn't exist. That's how he's setting up this system. And he's going through economic. I mean, like, I understand Casimir's point that, like, you know, oh, well, there's economies of scale. But, like, why does economies of scale not apply to all of these other surrounding areas? Why did economy of scale, like, how did you get all of these great scientists that are these great once in a lifetime people to work for you that won't work in competing markets? How are you artificially raising prices over and over again without competition coming in? It's stupid.
Steam, that is. And so most landowners
and also economies of scale doesn't fucking work anyways. Like, once you get big enough, the bureaucracy becomes a problem.
End up taking his offer, and those who initially don't are either swayed by secret deals where Billy Bob offers them a price well above market, or by threatening with accidents, quote unquote, happening to the pipes that feed those particular plots. One way or another, Billy Bob.
So now they're like threatening to kill people.
Right. So now he's threatening to cut people's water off that are in contracts that require tons of money if you ever do fucking cut the water off. Right. And somehow is using all of this threatening power and force and aggression against people, violating contracts and etc. And like, there's no rights enforcement agency, which we put forward. There's no group or collective that wants to go after this guy. He's got unlimited funds to do this, and he's able to bully everyone. Like, this is like, you're already setting up warlordism with your bad economic takes and describing a situation where nobody believes in anarcho-capitalist philosophy. I was wondering if there was a deeper analysis of what BlackRock was doing. Do you have any sources by any chance? I'd have to go back through my. I have sources on BlackRock in another area. We'd have to go back for it. But at Angie, she'll give you the deets. She'll give you tons of sources.
Ends up owning all the land plots around town, satisfying his growing urge for ownership and control, for the time being anyway. And because of his great public business practices, nobody opposes him. Everybody wants to see him succeed.
These are not great public business acts. These are threatening people with violence and aggression and threatening to kill people, defaulting on his own contracts, committing fraud, and artificially high prices. Like,
well, apparently no one's talking about all the threats and the backdoor deals.
Like, this is insane.
He's a great manager, a benefactor of prodigies, and his cheap, high-quality water helps the local industry, supporting breweries.
It's not cheap. You keep discussing how he has to go into the red, but it's okay. He'll increase profits later with like economies of scale and more efficiency. So that's not how that shit works in a free market. You don't just magically get more and more efficient whilst intentionally going into the red. Like, That's not how that works. Someone else is going to come along with cheaper products and services because you keep going into the red. You have to increase prices in order to do that.
Distilleries, a paper mill, and even a paint factory. His success is everyone else's success, and Einville is booming because of him. A true great man he is.
No, Einville has really fucking expensive water. That's what Einville has right now. Einville has really expensive water and a lot of people that are angry at this person. And eventually, if they don't have a rights enforcement agency or some system of governance and arbitration, the pitchforks are coming for this dude because he's literally threatening to cut people's water off if they don't sell them his home. Like,
well, certainly not going to be tanks and drones coming for him, you know.
Right, because we got rid of all advanced military technology for some reason for this example. Like this is a fantasy he's creating.
But the success begins to draw some shady characters into the area. Raider gangs from the abandoned areas in the south start harassing the town. The townsfolk organize into a militia and manage to fend off the attackers, but just barely. Dozens die to gunshot wounds, and the townsfolk come together on the main square.
But they wish they kept a tank or two.
Right? Like I don't know why they got rid of these things, and I don't know why we're now in we're in fucking colonial times in the state militia. Yeah.
Just barely. Dozens die to gunshot wounds, and the townsfolk come together on the main square to honor the dead. At the ceremony, Billy Bob delivers a speech.
All right.
Lamenting their heroic sacrifice. He ends his speech by announcing the foundation of a permanent security force under his control to defend the town, so that nothing like this will happen ever again. Anyone can...
Okay, cool.
There it is.
There we go. So now Billy Bob, with all of his massive fucking profits that he's getting from cheap water, I don't know how this guy hasn't been killed yet. And even still, I don't know how he didn't go out of business long ago. Now he's got this massive wealth and he's going to create his own private security firm that's free.
Enlist. The gear and training are provided, together with free company housing and a good salary. A few months later, Blackwater Security already has 100 members who, aside from...
Yeah, now he's using Blackwater.
Did he call it Blackwater? Really?
Yeah, he called it Blackwater. That's hilarious.
A good salary. A few months later, Blackwater Security already has 100 members who, aside from guarding the perimeters, also patrol inside Einville to keep...
How is Billy Bob affording all of this? So now he's going deep into the red by creating an entire...
water, bro.
Right, like somehow competition can't enter this marketplace. It's just the prices are too cheap and it's too amazing and nobody can compete. Trust me, bro, that's the source. Like, meanwhile, his profits from this absurdly cheap water and never having to increase prices allow him so much money that he can hire a free security firm that nobody has to pay money towards.
Keep up the order. That way, people no longer have to bother with organizing militias and neighborhood watches and have more time to spend freely. The next raider attack gets repelled much easier thanks to the organized, semi-professional defense force. Though casualties are minimal, the raiders manage to do significant damage to certain parts of the town. Billy Bob wants to pay for the reconstruction out of his own pocket, announcing his intention.
Billy Bob's got money to reconstruct the fucking town. Like, fucking, he's buying up houses in an artificially inflated market. He's committing all types of crime. Nobody's stopping him. Competition's impossible.
If you were an arsonist and an insurance fraudster in this town, all the money this guy gives away, you just burn down every other building.
Right? Like, what fucking magical mystery world of economic theory have you fucking created in order for this to work?
Tensions in front of a cheering crowd. He also suggests building a defensive structure around the town, which he would gladly help finance, but most of the money would come from people.
Oh, okay. Where's the money coming from on this one?
We're going to make the other settlements pay for it.
Right? Mexico's going to pay for it.
Which he would gladly help finance, but most of the money would come from people's pockets. At first, not everyone is on board with the idea, but in a few months following raider sightings and a massive pro-wall campaign, which appears to be grassroots but is financed completely by Billy Bob from the shadows, the public opinion...
Now he's just financing all these political campaigns? Like, dude, this dude's unlimited wealth. Like, you realize that you're playing City Sim, but that you entered a cheat code to just give yourself unlimited wealth so that you can constantly engage in horrible business decisions and yet somehow be absurdly wealthy. Like, you're playing the game on fucking God mode and just ignoring basic economic theory.
shifts and the wall gets built around Ainvale. The town becomes completely safe, which gives a boost to its economy and draws in a lot of people.
Also, I know the objectivists are just furious.
Why? Because he's attacking the great man theory?
Well, no, just associating Ayn Rand with anarcho-capitalism.
Area who move in for that safety and stability. Soon enough, Ainvale almost doubles in population thanks to its appeal and the generously low rent prices offered by the
generously low rent.
Where are they going to build these houses to live in? Because they're walled in now. Are they going to constantly expand this wall to adjust for their growth?
I don't know. Fuck if I know, dude.
Bill and Robert Real Estate Company, which aside from apartments,
low prices and massive profit just assumed over and over and over again to allow this guy to constantly engage in frivolous spending and bad business practices and be immune to criticism or competition in the market. Like, this is a fucking fantasy.
Federal Reserve?
Right? Money printer go burr, and it just works magically.
Also builds a massive fortification at the center of the town as Billy Bob's pet project. It's an added second line of defense that
all right, and now we just have like massive construction of like the Citadel, right?
People can retreat to in case the wall got breached. This added security draws in even more people and consequently causes significant appreciation in property prices. Everyone is in favor of building the fort. Once completed, Billy Bob moves his entire headquarters inside it. At this point, Billy Bob owns the water system, the land around town, multiple mines, workshops, foundries, a huge number of buildings in town, a security force, a wall, and a fort. And all these are run by the managers under him who also grow in power and influence with him, organizing different aspects of life and are only accountable to Billy Bob personally. Billy Bob is
Is this really just all to set up anarcho-feudalism? Like he sets up the world as feudalism and then sets up the rules as not anarcho-capitalism, then imagines his own economic theory that makes no fucking sense and isn't how the economics works, and then just creates like a citadel and then like a walled in city with a king. Like, is this what he's doing?
a great man who has done so much for Ainvale, and he would like to see some more compensation for his efforts. He announces the need for a contribution from everyone living inside the walls to finance the upkeep of all the defenses. Most people agree to it, and those who don't are offered to move outside the walls. If they refuse, black voters...
Right, but he owns all the fucking property magically from all of this, from the wild shit he was doing before. Do you have any idea how many people that have a libertarian mindset would move to those other places?
Probably a lot.
Simply evict them. Now, this is of course a risky move in terms of...
He's going to evict them.
Proceeds to buy up as many local news outlets as he can, or at least try to fill them.
Now this guy's buying up all the news. How much money does this guy have from his terrible business practices?
The ranks with writers secretly paid by him. Despite his efforts though, word spreads around town that Billy Bob has gone too far and needs to be stopped. Still, only a small minority of the population...
Word of mouth campaign, you can't stop that.
Right.
Population takes part in this, the rest being more than satisfied with their growing living standards under Billy Bob. Anti-Billy Bob...
Wait, hold on, pause. Did he set up the heroes that are finally fighting back as the QAnon shaman and the normies that are listening and like going along with it as the men and the men in the anti-male Gillette commercial? Because if that's the case, unintentionally based by fucking AdamSomething. Right, even if this somehow managed to exist, like people would just move to those other places if they were free to do so. Like, fuck this place.
They'd have to pay that $1,000 disconnect fee, and there's no way they could accrue that much wealth. Not in this company town.
Bob movements are formed, but are consequently squashed by Blackwater agents working with Billy Bob's growing network of informants. Members are tried in the Blackwater court system, popularly accepted as the biggest and most efficient.
Now he bought the entire legal system and court system. There's no competition there. And like every step of the way, this guy just has unlimited resources to buy up any monopoly, and it doesn't increase competition.
Well, hang on. It could be one of his managers working as a proxy.
Yeah, of course.
efficient body to dispense justice in Ainville. Over time, people inside the walls become a sort of higher class citizenry who have access to high quality public services in exchange for their taxes and loyalty to Billy Bob. Those outside the walls don't pay taxes, but no public services are provided to them unless they pay a hefty quote-unquote outskirts premium and can only be inside the town center between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Those who want to move in
What? All right, so we're assuming that there are still free people that are not under this private property owner's domain, and that this person like says you can only have, like, you do realize these people are going to create water, right? Like, you do realize that these people are going to create competing services, right? Like, but he's working under the assumption that like capital is this magical thing, and that like that there's a certain piece of the pie of capital, and that this guy has all the capital now, and he can just make all the profits because he has the capital. This is just a fucking weird Marxist masturbation of like bad economic theory. The best part is that he's trying to make this fit a version of feudalism that is also anti-historical fiction. Exactly.
inside the city walls won't be let in by Blackwater security unless they pay a quote-unquote settlement premium, a fee designed to keep up the prestige of living inside the walls. Those on the outside have of course limited access to all the jobs and opportunities on the inside. Therefore, they have to get by mostly on agricultural work, for which they get rations and housing. The new...
So hold on, pause. Are all the people inside the wall not able to purchase goods and services from outside the wall? Are those people similarly oppressed? Because if the people outside the world are able to do those things, you don't think this spot right here is going to become like a dope ass Chinese restaurant? Like assuming all of this is under the private property owner's domain, you don't think that this place isn't going to create some form of good or service that outcompetes what's inside? You don't think these people don't want to gentrify these neighborhoods? Like that they don't want, like there's not going to be a thriving group of like poor, starving artists in this area that create things that these people think are hip and cool, and that there won't be investment from these areas into these communities, that there won't be competition. I've walked with you every step of the way, AdamSomething, and every step of the way, all you've shown is a utter retarded understanding of economic theory and a complete inability to understand how private property or free markets exist. They do have the best egg rolls. Exactly. These are the best egg rolls in town, despite the fact that they're on the outskirts, despite the fact that they're using sewer water because they don't want to pay the fucking cheap water fees. It's super cheap. Even though this guy constantly goes in the red every step of the way, economies of scale just fucking magically fucking rescue him from everything, even though he has this giant bureaucracy he has to maintain. And these people are having to pay taxes, and these people aren't having to pay taxes.
If it was good, this God King would buy it.
If it was good, this God King would buy it. Little bits coming in with the save. True.
You just got debunked.
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, they've let this guy get away with every form of violence and bad business every step of the way anyways. He's going to threaten to shut off their water, but it doesn't matter because those egg rolls are so fucking delicious because they're using sewer oil, all right? Because they're not using his clean fucking water, and nobody wants to admit it. Yeah, you get sick. Yeah, sometimes you get a 1-star Yelp review, but this is the fucking spot.
Mostly on agricultural work, for which they get rations and housing. The new unspoken...
They get ration... Oh, okay, so now all of this land is owned by this guy.
Forage poor.
Rule spreads around town. Billy Bob will give you law and order, stability and prosperity, but for that you must pay your dues and not question his authority under any circumstances. Those who do get fined or even exiled, depending on the severity, but for each exile there are 5 newcomers to take their place, wanting to participate in the stable economy and society. Okay.
All right, so this is the end of his simulation. So even if this did occur, people would just move to those other communities. Like why the fuck would they stay here unless it was better? Eat your corpse starch, Underhiver. I don't know what that means. But I mean, like, the fact of the matter is, is that he's obviously engaged in central planning now, which means you have the economic calculation problem, as Casimir was pointing towards earlier. And so since you have the economic calculation problem, it is absolutely necessary that all of these goods and services are more expensive than what the market is able to provide. And you have these neighboring towns and communities that would obviously outcompete them, even if you started with this system itself. It's stupid.
Yeah, this was pretty much just a straw man video.
I mean, it was a straw man on the onset of what we wanted. It was a straw man of what proto-anarcho-capitalism is supposed to be. And then it was a straw man of like this weird system that he was trying to set up to intentionally create a feudal society again.
Hey, Scoot.
I have not. Send his stuff to me. I'll check him out.
Alright, so what do we have here? A well-protected town with a fortified administrative center. Outside there is a lower class, mostly working the fields. Inside we have a privileged citizen class, and most aspects of life are controlled by a sort of nobility, who are only accountable to the man above them. And of course, most of everything is owned by that man alone. So, through this simulation, by starting out with the most ideal circumstances possible for an AnCap society to rise, we ended up with a sort of enlightened feudalism. And why wouldn't we? You know, capitalism is fundamentally based on a government-like hierarchy. One that
now we get the anti-capitalist takes from the guy who doesn't understand capitalism at all, and over and over and over again just ignored basic economics and ignored competition, gave this guy unlimited funds over and over and over again to set up this fucking system.
And why wouldn't we? You know, capitalism is fundamentally based on a government-like hierarchy, one that isn't democratic. So once you introduce a power vacuum by ending the government, it makes sense that capitalism will fill that vacuum, but this time with a truly autocratic structure. You know,
what? Oh God, the assertions here at the very end is just that once capitalism fills the power vacuum, it automatically creates these monopolies and oh my God. No, you asshole. An autocracy. Thank you. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is just Marxist bullshit. This, like, no, monopolies are created by the state. They're not created by the free market. They can't be created by the free market. It's impossible to create it via the free market. It's like it can only occur with state power. Because you have the freedom to compete. You know what I mean? Like when you have a free market, you have creative destruction. There's always that person that comes in that creates a better product or service that destroys what it is that you yourself created, even if you had a monopsony on the market before. This is literally what happened to Standard Oil. People say that the Supreme Court stepped in and broke apart Standard Oil. No, they were already falling apart. The market itself was already destroying Standard Oil because the technology that they had and the organizational capacity and all of those things that made kerosene so cheap that gave them a natural monopsony on the market were falling apart because other people are utilizing that same technology. And there was other goods and services and oils and things like that. And coal was coming into the market. Now, of course, like coal was coming back into the market, but nevertheless. Well, the market got worse immediately after their split. Well, yeah, that's because you didn't allow the companies to naturally take over Standard Oil. I told you this video was fucking cringe. It's super cringe and hilarious.
Sense that capitalism will fill that vacuum, but this time with a truly autocratic structure. You know, I always hear these libertarians and AnCaps whine about government tyranny and how taxes are theft, but I mean, when was the last time you had a say in how your workplace is run? Hey, when's the next CEO election coming up?
You have okay, first of all, there are fucking elections on boards, number one, for the people that actually own these things. Public corporations do this all the time, though usually they give you the people that they want you to vote between, and it's kind of already decided because the board makes up like 40% of the voting share anyways. But first of all, there are those things, number one. Number two, we're not against co-ops. If you fucking voluntarily form a co-op and you want to fucking make your co-op work, you can have your fucking co-op. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, co-ops don't tend to work as well. And especially when they go into foreign markets, they kind of give up. They usually destroy themselves and stop being a co-op. But also, I have no problem with an ESOP model, right? Like, I have no problem with a company that gives its employees voting shares and has A shares and B shares. And like the A shares are given to every employee and the B shares are given based off of seniority or position within the company. So as you get promoted or as you're in the company longer, you have additional voting B shares so that the janitor gets a say, but they get less of a say than, let's say, someone on the board of directors or like the chief financial officer, etc. Also, well, hold on, what was the other thing that he said?
When was the last time you had a say in how your workplace is run? Structure. You know, I always hear these libertarians and AnCaps whine about government tyranny and how taxes are theft. But I mean, when was the last time you had a say in how your workplace is?
Oh yeah, the other point I wanted to make, you do have a say. You can get a different job. It's voluntary. Like, you don't have a say when the state runs over you. Like, any of these people on the outskirts of town could choose, even in this feudal, fucked up system that like doesn't adhere to any economic theory and is set in a world recovering after World War III for some fucking reason. Like, even in this weird fantasy world, these people could go into the outskirts of the woods and forage for fucking whatever it is that they want. They could homestead property. They could. Right, like there's all kinds of things that they could do. They could go further enough and fucking get themselves a metal detector and find the drones and the technology that's supposedly been decommissioned after World War III. I don't fucking know. Like, this fantasy world where economics doesn't apply, like, is a strange situation. But like, these people can leave and go to the other town. This little town in the background over here looks like a great place to get away from the oppression and the extremely high prices that must be caused by the central planning and the economic calculation problem that this central planner is unable to solve now.
That's the Duke's summer home.
Autocratic structure. You know, I always hear these libertarians and AnCaps whine about government tyranny and how taxes are theft. But I mean, when was the last time you had a say in how your workplace is run? Hey, when's the next CEO election coming up? The one you can vote in as well as an employee, not just the rich shareholders. Okay, so this was a lot of fun actually, and I think I'll be giving it a second try. Because something must have been wrong, right? Anarcho-Capitalism can't just turn into feud.
Yeah, literally all of what you showed was a complete lack of understanding of economics, and you set up a weird feudal system to begin with, and you set up anarcho-capitalist philosophy and theory to not have anything to do with natural law or the non-aggression principle. Yeah, there was a lot wrong with this. Like, literally every principal element.
Now let's play that City Skylines video where the guy like makes a AnCap paradise and lets the rich decide everything, and it just gets amazing.
Hold on, you said there's
our whole response was that video.
Hold on, there's a part 2. Fuck it, let's go into part 2. I'm down for it. We'll get the whole debunking ready. What? Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Oh shit. There's a oh, here we go. Hold on. How long is this one? Okay. Same amount of time. So he does a part 2 and you're saying this is better? Fuck it. I didn't even know that there was a part. I didn't even know there was a part 2.
And the first part only took us an hour and a half.
You know, whatever.
On AdamSomething's Anarcho-Capitalism in Practice. Anarcho-Capitalism is a
Public services privatized. Is this a core belief for AnCaps? Yeah, I would say it's a core belief for AnCaps. Read Hoppa's public, private, and common property and the rationalization for the total privatization of property.
a stateless society where individuals are free to contract.
So now we're on part 2. Let me put a little marker in it. This is part 2. I didn't realize there was 2 parts to this, but we'll look at part 2 because this is apparently even more hilarious than the first one, which was really fucking stupid. So just a recap, if you hit the marker and you wanted to see the second one when we put it up on YouTube, just to recap, in part 1, what we learned is that World War III happened for some reason, and that's necessary for AnCapistan. We learned that all AnCaps believe Anarcho-Capitalism is the same thing as the Icelandic Tane system, which it's not, and that failed after 300 years, and that proves AnCapistan bad, which I don't get at all. We learned that AdamSomething has no understanding of economics, competition, price, supply and demand, private property, and creates anarcho-capitalism without the idea of valid contracts, non-aggression principle, or private property rights. So he's just in, I don't know what he showed. He just showed a fantasy circle jerk of his own misunderstanding of economic theory and anarcho-capitalism. But apparently this one's even more hilarious. So we're going to get into it.
With each other, and everything else is up to the free market. And I will be focusing on one of them, this fellow called Billy Bob, living in the town of Ainville. Using his knowledge of distillers, he puts together a water purifier so he can disconnect from the local water system and save money. Soon enough, he has enough capital to offer a handsome amount for the local water system. Now owns mines, foundries, machine building workshops, and optimizes their production for his goals.
All right, so this video requires the assumptions of all of the other video because this is going to be funny.
Billy Bob founds the Bill and Robert Agricultural Company and starts buying out all the land plots around Ainville. The public opinion shifts and the wall gets built around Ainville. Soon enough, Ainville almost doubles in population thanks to its appeal and the generously low rent prices offered by the Bill and Robert Real Estate Company, which, aside from apartments, also builds a massive fortification at the center of the town as Billy Bob's pet project. So what do we have here? A well-protected town with a fortified administrative center. Outside there is a lower class, mostly working the fields. Inside we have a privileged citizen class and
The filthy peasants.
Those filthy fucking peasants with their competing Chinese restaurant using sewer oil.
Life are controlled by a sort of nobility who are only accountable to the man above them. And of course, most of everything is owned by that man alone. We ended up with a sort of enlightened feudalism. And why wouldn't we?
because that's not how economy works, and that's not what anarcho-capitalism is. That's why we wouldn't, but okay.
Welcome back to Anarcho-Capitalism in Practice, Part 2. In this episode, we'll be leaving the town of Ainville behind and we'll move our attention to Randham, a settlement which is by all means...
Again with this.
Yo, he's really fucking, does he not know that Ayn Rand hated libertarians and that most libertarians and objectivists don't get together, we don't get along? I think he might be I almost feel like he's doing this on purpose, or maybe he thinks it's the same thing because he clearly doesn't understand anarcho-capitalist philosophy at all, nor economics.
Means very similar to Ainville, and this time we're going to be super duper extra charitable and assume that the people of Randham somehow...
Oh wow.
You weren't last time. Is that your admission that you weren't charitable at all? Also, is this town nearby Ainville? Again, why are all of these towns like these weird microcosms where people can't exist outside of the town? Except for Raiders. Raiders exist outside of town. Nobody else exists outside of town.
Because they got killed by the Raiders.
There's the Raiders. This fucking he sets up Fallout 3 anarcho-capitalism style without any anarcho-capitalism. But let's continue.
And this time we're going to be super duper extra charitable and assume that the people of Randham somehow know the fate of Ainville, and now they want to make extra sure that Randham doesn't end up like Ainville. And the general consensus around Randham...
Super charitable that they somehow know.
Sunk that bridge.
They somehow know. Maybe it's because they're people don't live in isolation in their towns. What do you mean they somehow know? That's one of their fucking trading partners.
Randham seems to be that the reason why Ainville ended up with feudalism is because they didn't do anarcho-capitalism hard enough. And so to avoid future...
Obviously, because they didn't do any anarcho-capitalism in Ainville.
Problems. Everyone in Randham takes this AnCap stuff super duper seriously. And things function, kind of. But as with capitalism...
things function, kind of.
And especially anarcho-capitalism, some people will be inevitably left behind. Now let's be extremely charitable and say that 80%.
Name a system where people aren't left behind. Don't worry, I'll wait. I understand that you're not actually here, AdamSomething, but what the fuck are you talking about?
% of people are better off in this AnCap system, but 20% are devastated. These 20% have nearly nothing, often not even a roof over their heads. The system just swallowed them, chewed them up, and then spat them out to the wayside. These people are stuck in every sense of the word. For a
Name
the sidewalks of LA.
Right, like I was about to say, like name a system that doesn't have poor people. Like, okay, so there's a group of people that are homeless and poor in this area that don't have property and are living in Tentville's. Okay, we'll call them, I have an idea, something that's never been thought of before, homeless people. Homeless people exist, cool. So we're starting off with the idea that homeless people exist, awesome.
Wide variety of reasons, they can't just bootstrap themselves out of their situation. For example, many have injuries sustained at previous workplaces that prevent them from being able to work again. Injuries that would need costly medical care, but they can't afford the medical care because they can't work, because they would need the medical care first to be able to work.
Yeah, awesome. You're describing poor people. Poor people exist. We would be able to deal with it better than your systems, but that's fine.
Reasons can be mental illness, where the story is pretty much the same. To be able to make money, they would need medical care, which they can't afford because they can't work, because they can't afford medical care. And from the business owner's perspective, why hire someone physically or mentally ill when you can hire healthy people who can do much more work and turn a better profit? And so this
turn a better profit. I love this like weird fetish he has of the evil capitalist that is only concerned with the profit, and I need more profits and I need more money. Instead of like, I don't know, the idea that like, you know, if you hire better people, you get more profit because you're able to provide a better, more valuable service and good and produce more innovation, which makes everyone better and happier. That the profit is the reward you get for proper resource allocation and interest paid for goods and services according to the universal time preference.
20% underclass isn't going anywhere and is a permanent phenomenon in the town of Rantham. One day, however, a strange man arrives into town. He buys a house on the outskirts and converts it into a church. His religion? Atlassianism. His congregation.
What is this fucking, like, you do realize that objectivists hate libertarians, right? Like they
religion.
Like I spoke to Dr. Yaron Brook and his, I'm quoting here. This is a quote. That's why libertarianism must fail. Like that's how objectivists feel about fucking libertarianism. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, I think it's stupid. I think they basically are libertarians with some caveats, and I think we should be working together. And I don't think that there actually is a conflict between these things. But this weird obsession with Rand is just funny.
Congregation? Well, so far only him. Who is this man? A great philosopher and a big
I love that it's Stefan Molyneux. Oh, fuck.
Fan of the Roman Empire. Let's call him Stefan Montreux. He has seen the demise of Ainville personally and drew some relevant conclusions. Indeed, that whole situation was his inspiration to found Atlassianism itself. He is in possession of knowledge that can and will save the world, according to him anyway, and since he's been burdened by this knowledge, it is now his holy duty to spread it among the masses. But what is Atlassianism all about? Stefan doesn't fully know either, but is certain that his god, Ain the Holy, will enlighten him along the way. For now, all he knows
you know, I know objectivists are going to be so fucking triggered by this idea that like Rand is this religious figure, especially because I've said before that they take some things on faith.
Is that all negative consequences of anarcho-capitalism are due to people not doing anarcho-capitalism hard enough. So who is in most dire need of this knowledge?
Wait, what? Rand is explicitly against anarchism. Like, fucking, what is this? Oh, fuck.
That Stefan has been burdened with. Well, obviously those lower 20% who have failed the system, and for this transgression they have been condemned to a life of poverty and misery. Stefan Montreux decides to change this. He goes to the slums every single day, preaching Atlassianism, droning on and on and on for hours on end.
I don't feel like that's going to be a very successful religion when you misinterpret all of the texts. And on top of a misinterpretation of everything that person has said, you also are preaching to poor people that they're not AnCap enough and that's why they failed. Like,
Sounds like Catholicism.
why wouldn't you just create a fucking charity? Like, this is fucking stupid.
And those people in the slums, poor and desperate, start listening to him more and more. Consequently, his flock grows bigger and bigger as time goes on. First 2 people, then 4, then 20, then 50. Local property owners start noticing that there are less and less tent camps around town. Those who are gone now seem to be congregating around Stefan's church. Stefan also notices this.
Sounds like a problem solved.
Right? Sounds like Stefan Montreux fucking solved the fucking problem. Got those dirty poors out of town.
Yeah, that crazy religious guy, he just started up his little homeless cult out there. All's well that ends well, huh?
Right? Like, they didn't even...
Hope nobody found a morning glory root the size of a large sweet potato.
Right? Like, I don't understand why there isn't a charity, like why people don't have why property owners that have these poor slum like conditions next to them don't have a vested interest in cleaning up the streets. Like, I don't understand what this is, but accordingly, it's going to be solved by this religion of misinterpreting Ayn Rand. Let's go.
An idea. He goes around town visiting property owners, and to all of them he makes the same offer. Pitch in a small amount of money each month so that he can run a soup kitchen in his church. The free food should attract more and more of the 20%, which means tent camps will disappear. Because of this, your property
sounds great.
will appreciate in price, and so it'll be well worth the investment. A lot of property owners accept his offer, more than enough to start the soup kitchen. Virtually all the homeless in Rantown are drawn to his church now in pursuit of the free food. The congregation now numbers in the hundreds. Now most of them are just there for the free food, but during every meal Stefan preaches to the masses, and so more and more people start listening over time. Meanwhile, Stefan decides it's time for the flock to be a bit more active. He rents out the adjoining empty parcel and divides it up into a community garden. There he puts some of his faithful to work. The tasks are simple and the workload is very light, and you can keep a third of the food you farmed as payment and the rest goes for the soup kitchen. There are hundreds of people for dozens.
All right, so what you're talking about is so far Stefan Montreux has set up a charity, religious charity of mutual aid that is anarcho-mutualism or anarcho. I mean, I guess it's anarcho-mutualism because they're engaging in some form of market economy. I'm sure some of these people are working in the town. They're getting cleaned up. And because of that, they're going to be better off. Some of these people are going to leave and have houses. There's going to be, they're obviously some form of labor market in some regard. Like, but I mean, also all of these people apparently are mentally ill and have physical injuries. So I don't know how they're all working in the garden, but I mean, they're getting it done.
Not well.
They're getting it done.
Dozens of patches, so Stefan decides that only the truly faithful can work the land. The goddess Ayn has to be in you first, he says, if you want to produce goods. He organizes seminars to get...
Sounds vaguely sexual.
All right, so, but there's still a fucking soup kitchen. Okay, so he set up a religious commune outside. All right.
To see who's the most devout, to see who has the deepest faith and knowledge of Atlassianism. Working the fields is very attractive to people. It gives you something to do, something useful to do. It gives you a purpose, a reason to wake up in the morning aside from free food and sermons. Surely enough, the fields fill up with workers, all very well versed in Atlassianism and its tenets. They know.
So far, we have a religious cult that is solving the homeless problem. I'm on board.
There's no way this can backfire.
Right, of course.
Actually, you know what? This might be a problem that solves itself. Just, be careful which congressman you send out to talk to him.
Right. Also, for the record, this has nothing to do with Rand or anarcho-capitalism. And if he was preaching anarcho-capitalism, it wouldn't work this way. So let's just assume that Randianism is a new religion that has a totally different philosophy, because that's what he's doing.
Versed in Atlassianism and its tenets. They know that the solution to anarcho-capitalism's problems is more anarcho-capitalism. They now know.
They're engaged in
anarcho-capitalism.
They're engaged in mutualism. Like that, like what? Like this isn't anarcho-capitalism. Like it's fine that these guys have their own little fucking religion over there and they're working together and solving things together as a community. That's cool, so long as they don't aggress upon other people.
know much more than everyone else, with all the new information just showering down on them from Stefan Montreux's mind. Trickle-down economics, austerity, privatization, 1350, the list goes on.
What? 1350 is now a fucking aspect of anarcho-capitalism based in Randian philosophy? Like, fucking what?
While in Rantham, the property owners are ecstatic. The homeless problem has been solved, and so properties are appreciating a lot thanks to that, and also to the ferry service operating near the town. There was supposed to be a toll bridge originally, but the project never got realized. The town contracted a construction brigade for the works, paying them a 10% deposit. Then, when they finished work on the pillars, they got 40%, the remaining...
Okay, what do you mean the town? This is like the town came together. Explain this. The whole point is private property. So is this a covenant community now that has a system of taxation? Was it a voluntary system that some people chose to put money into? I don't understand.
50% pending until completion, and then the workers disappeared during the night, taking all tools and materials with them. It was later found out that the pillars were built using the cheapest, lowest quality concrete, definitely not suitable for pillars, and that the little they built costed approximately as much as the deposit, and all of it will collapse within a few months anyway. Some townspeople...
Sounds like what happens when you hire central planners to do things, as you seem to have set up in AnCapistan.
People suggested contacting the relevant government agencies to apprehend the scammers, but then they were reminded that they live in an anarcho-capitalist utopia where this is not possible. So they...
Okay, so you have government and you don't have government whenever it fits your analogy? Like, you haven't explained how this covenant community works. This makes no sense.
They made a Facebook post about it, detailing the scam so that nobody else will fall for it. The post was read by 500 people. The construction brigade members went on to become millionaires later that year. Now there are...
What? This is the super charitable version, and you're just like inserting weird random things.
I think
this is so strange. What even is this? How does this guy have 1 million fucking subs? He's just masturbating weird. He's just playing cityscapes, and when it fails, just like adding fucking talks over it.
There are two piers of questionable quality where you can lease boats to get through. One trip across costs $50, and since 90% of people want to cross just once in transit and then leave the region, the smallest fare is a package of 5 trips across for $250, all of them to be used within 4 hours of purchase. Some travelers called this pricing practice a scam, but then they were reminded that they live in an anarcho-capitalistic utopia where they can just start their own ferry business if they don't like the others' prices. By the way, all previous entrepreneurs who tried building another ferry service mysteriously drowned in the river. Since then, nobody...
What? Nobody has rights enforcement agency. There's no policing. There's no investigation of crime because you obviously need a state to do all of these things. Like, but there is no state. And like, what
is a boy to do?
What is this fucking analogy? Like, this is so fucking stupid.
else bothered for some reason. But back to Stefan.
What do you mean nobody bothered for some reason? Like, obviously these people are murdering people. There's a serial killer. Like, why are we not trying to find the serial killer?
Montreux and his growing congregation. Since his efforts helped the local property owners so much, he collected enough donations from them so that he could build a bigger church, more than enough to accommodate his growing flock. He rented out further plots around the church, providing work, food and purpose to an increasing number of faithful. Further immersion into Atlassianism is in the rational self-interest of believers. The more devout and radical you are, the better your position will be within the church and the more prestige and benefits you will have.
You're creating a religion that is founded upon ideas that are anti-religion. Like, that doesn't, like, how is that supposed to work? It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. You've said so many random stupid things that it just doesn't make sense.
A strong, closely knit community grows around Stefan's church. This helps alleviate a lot of mental health issues, and the pooled knowledge of people even helps with some of the physical ills some people have. Many people get healthier, both mentally and physically, because of this new support network, and are now able to work outside of the church. Stefan agrees with the property owners that he would send trusted, good workers to do smaller works around the town for a much lower price than the other workers would do.
Wait, is he kidnapping people? Like, do these people not have the right to work? Like, what are you talking about? What AnCapistan is this where there's a fucking, like, a kidnapping cult outside of town? What the fuck are you talking about?
it. It is in the rational self-interest of everyone in town to hire Stefan's religious workforce, who, in turn, based on the divine contract they signed, give half their income back to Stefan as a gratitude for having been lifted up by him.
Why? Why would they sign this? What is... All right, so get rid of anarcho-capitalism now in this supposed anarcho-capitalist place that doesn't have any anarcho-capitalist philosophy or theory in it whatsoever. It just has capitalism sort of, but not really. I don't even know what we're reacting to at this point. Like, this is so far off the rails stupid and not based off of... This is anarcho-capitalism in practice and has nothing to do with AnCaps.
In order to get a job like that, you have to prove your unwavering faith in Stefan and Atlassianism.
Why? Why do they not have the freedom to just work? Like, what are you talking about?
Because they're in a cult and they've given themselves over to a higher power, in this case, Stefan.
In Randianism, which is anti-cult and anti...
Oh, Atlassianism.
This is fucking weird.
The most devout deserve to be involved in this wonderful opportunity. The sudden influx of a large, cheap workforce forces multiple small businesses shut who previously depended on these jobs. This produces a new...
What are you talking about? There's half of their money is required to go towards this religious cult. But also, right there is a whole group of people living without this cult that just as easily could pay people 60% less wages if they're 40% less wages, and they would make 10% more if they simply weren't in this cult. Also, yeah, and the soup kitchen's still there. What is this?
New underclass who are then attracted to Stefan's church by the free meals. As they go through Stefan's system following their rational self-interest, first for food, then for the plot of land, then for the right for secure jobs, they become more and more fervent followers of Atlassianism. It is in their rational self-interest to become more and more immersed in the faith because that's the easiest way to better opportunities.
No, it's literally not. The easiest way to better opportunities is to use the soup kitchen and then get a job without giving half of the job to Stefan. Half of the money to Stefan. Like, that's what's in your best interest.
Yeah, one would think.
Stefan expands his portfolio and starts doing sermons that are also business seminars. This attracts a different demographic to his church. These new people aren't poor or desperate. They're richer property and business owners looking to immerse themselves more in the AnCap way of thinking from a man they know and like.
Except he hasn't done anything AnCap yet. He's just started a cult.
Weeks and months, many of these people become believers themselves, some more fervent than the others, thanks to Stefan's charisma and oratory skills. The church now fills up to the brim every single day with both the rich and the poor, with a lot of people even standing outside to hear the holy words of Stefan Montreux. In addition, the church has accumulated huge amounts of money through all the donations and commission from contract work. His congregation is almost 1,000 strong now, and so Stefan decides the time has come. His sermons gradually change from can-do optimism to warnings of impending doom. Unless people start following the faith he preaches, AnCap civilization will fall, and its people with it. If degenerate...
This is so stupid. Like, you have a bunch of atheist AnCaps or possibly Christian libertarians living in a community that we've yet to describe how the fuck it's AnCap. And the only speaking of AnCap is this religion that isn't AnCap. And yet all of these people are going to fall to this religion of AnCap. But also there's a fairy problem that we talked about. I don't know how this fucking works into things. And some people became millionaires by scamming the town government, except they don't have a government, but they do have a government. This is so off of the rails stupid that it's becoming difficult to critique because it just doesn't resemble anything.
Such as taxation, social programs, or women's rights are allowed to fester. AnCap civilization.
What? Now AnCap is against women's rights? Like, what? What the fuck? What is this?
It will fall just like Rome did. The only way forward, he declares, is to turn Rantham into a holy city-state where only the most faithful will live, from where a great, magical purification of anarcho-capitalism can start. One of his new converts, a rich former construction worker, who may or may not have participated in a local bridge project under a fake name and appearance, offers to get together with his similarly rich friends who also happen to be former construction workers and fund the construction of a massive cathedral right in the center of Rantham to get.
So now the scam company from the government that is a government and isn't a government that scammed the town out of a bridge, but still somehow became millionaires, are working under pseudo names to build a cathedral to a religion that's anti-woman for some reason, but who's found, but worships a fictional character in a book written by a woman that is against religion about anarcho-capitalism, and yet they're not following anarcho-capitalism, but also Randian philosophy is objectivism and not anarcho-capitalism. There's so many degrees of stupid here that it's like talking to it's like listening to a toddler try and tell you a story where you just kind of have to smile and nod and be like, oh,
Cool.
that's cool.
Together with
Well, Alicat said it best. This is a guy who likes to play city skylines and make up stories about his cities.
Yeah, this is just weird.
construction workers and fund the construction of a massive cathedral right in the center of Rantham, together with adjoining residential blocks of.
I'm not watching two more parts. Like I'm
Yeah,
like
no,
there's
I'm
two
done
more.
after this one.
After this we're done. Like this is so many degrees of stupid. Like AdamSomething is like with this has shown himself to either be a genius level troll that is setting this up just to piss off AnCap people to get traction on his videos, or a complete and utter idiot.
Of dubious quality. Now all of it gets built surprisingly fast thanks to the stable source of funding and the large volunteer workforce of believers. There, Stefan Montreux takes his place of honor, a presidential suite inside the cathedral surrounded by his most faithful. He now has enough ardent believers to delegate preaching to them. He now prefers to fund and conduct massive media campaigns instead.
It's like an Assassin's Creed map.
Right?
Atlassianism. The faith starts spreading in the area. In addition, Rantham becomes majority Atlassian. In the meantime, Stefan has an idea. He makes a list of all business owners in town, noting the type of their business, their projected profits, and their level of faith. To make the latter easier to measure, he introduces tiers to Atlassianism. You can advance through the tiers by a combination of working for the church, attending sermons, and paying out.
When did Atlassianism become Scientology? Like what is happening?
Your deeds and donations shall get you to heaven.
Holy dividends from your income. Once you do enough, your faith is tested, so only the truly faithful can advance. The higher your tier, the higher your prestige within the church and consequently in Rantham. But back to Stefan's main idea. He pinpoints key businesses in town, those that provide essential services and those that make the most money. Most of their owners are members of his church. Now at this point he himself hasn't held sermons for months and his personal appearances are very rare. All the preaching is delegated to his missionaries and cardinals. Only believers who are at least tier 20 can gain private audience with Stefan, and only once every 3 months for 10 minutes. Due to any
Stefan's already dead. All right. Like I'm just I don't know where this is going, but Stefan's already dead. All right. We're just engaging with this fantasy that has nothing to do with anarcho-capitalism. It's a fun little story you're setting up. But Stefan's dead. He was killed. I don't know if anybody saw Equilibrium with us on movie night. But yeah, Father doesn't exist.
Or you just look at Scientology genuinely and just, hey, L. Ron Hubbard just like has a stroke and like disappears, and all of a sudden David Miscavige is the leader of the messengers and in charge of Scientology.
Right.
immense demand and minuscule supply, his personal presence and attention becomes the most sought-after commodity within Rantham. In light of this, Stefan makes an unprecedented show of holy grace. He declares that Holy Ayn has spoken to him in his dreams, where she said those business owners might be the chosen ones, magical individuals who will help purify anarcho-capitalism. Because of this, he offers these business owners daily private audiences, of course only to find out whether they are truly the chosen ones. In practice,
What is this religion that has nothing to do with anarcho-capitalism?
this
Just
means
some kind of
Stefan
weird
sitting with them in his
dream,
private
I don't
quarters
know.
for hours on end, progressively indoctrinating them deeper and deeper into Atlassianism. Surely enough, within a few months, most of those business owners become his most zealous followers. After all the propaganda, manipulation, and emotional abuse disguised as preaching the truth, they would be ready to give up everything for Stefan. A few might even die for him. But Stefan would never ask such things.
Hold on. More than a few at this point in this weird theocracy you've set up. Trust.
From them. Such is his grace. He doesn't want them to give up everything or to die for him. He merely wants them to run their businesses the way he tells them to. This gives Stefan complete manual control over most essential services in town, not to mention direct control over the profits of those businesses. Meanwhile, the new tier system, a byproduct of his previous idea, turns out to be a wild success. It is in everyone's rational self-interest to advance through the tiers, since that way they can make more money. Most townspeople are believers, you see.
What about the people who aren't wasting their resources on this stupid fucking cult you set up? Like, are they not more profitable? Like, what the fuck is this? This is so stupid.
And they prefer doing business with fellow believers over heretics.
Your BFF Polly is crying about you as we speak. I mean,
Oh no.
why? Because I utterly trounced her at a meme debate, or because she couldn't get onto my panel? It wouldn't surprise me if her and her ilk were the people that were fucking trying to get it taken off of Twitch. Well, you did. Congratulations. It's on YouTube. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. I beat you once in a debate and you were too much of a pussy to debate me again because you were just clout chasing to get on a panel that nobody wanted you on. Nobody except a bunch of fucking rabid, stupid ass TRAs.
Most townspeople are believers, you see, just to advance through the tiers, since that way they can make more money. Most townspeople are believers, you see, and they prefer doing business with fellow believers over heretics. So faithful business owners can and should expect more patronage and thus more use. And even among the faithful, a tier 10 business owner is preferred over, say, a tier 2, since the former has more faith in Anarcho-Capitalism and Holy Ein, and therefore should be better.
They have more faith in natural law philosophy and the fact that taxation is theft. And like, what? This is so stupid. Like, I want to say something, I want to react, but instead of like bad economic theory or things you can debunk, this is just a weird fantasy novel that has nothing to do with anarchism, capitalism, or anarcho-capitalism.
Owner and thus can be trusted more. In addition, Stefan restricts access to his cheap workforce for people with tier 10 or above. If you're below 10, you won't get cheap labor. Consequently, the sermons and seminars are full, as everyone, even from surrounding towns, flocks to the cathedral in hopes of advancing their tiers and thus having access to all the benefits, including a cheap workforce. It is in their rational self-interest to do so. The believers are now a majority in all settlements in the area, and through their increasing faith, Stefan...
So the cult, the cult that has no philosophical foundation has somehow magically taken over every society. Why? How? And what? I mean, like, I guess it's possible. I mean, it's a weird fucking fantasy, but like anything's possible. You know, like, it's just weird.
Stefan gains more and more control over their lives, thus over their businesses, and thus over their money. And he doesn't even need to leave the cathedral to do so. He now controls entire towns through his spiritual leverage with the help of his local ministries headed by his highest tier, most zealous followers. As a show of Stefan Montreux's endless grace and charity, the church even finances daycares and schools free of charge in all towns, so the children...
Where is he getting this money? Oh, by taking profits. Oh, well, if he's taking profits, that means they increase prices. Again, it's just basic economics, folks. Like, this doesn't work. Like, this is just stupid.
Will be in good hands as the parents have more time to do business.
I'm speeding this up at the end because, like, I don't see myself having much to say about anything.
These daycares and schools are coincidentally indoctrination centers for Atlassianism. By the time kids get through that system, most of them become radicalized.
Or statism in the current paradigm.
Right?
That's forth like wildfire, and the faith soon enough conquers an area the size of a smaller country. At this point, Stefan Montreux proclaims the foundation of the Holy Atlassian Federation, a network of settlements spanning hundreds of kilometers in every direction. His local ministries...
Wow.
He's just trying to throw like lack of women's rights and like racist ideas as like the means of like and tie objectivism and anarcho-capitalism all together. Like, this is a giant fucking meme.
These become centers of governance, with his cathedral the holiest, most important of them all. Later, guided by a dream of Holy Ein speaking to him, Stefan decrees that after every purchase of every good, a 10% contribution to the church is now mandatory. In exchange, the church subsidizes...
How is he affording all of these things? Where is the free market capitalism that's part of anarcho-capitalism?
services in settlements, even standardizes and improves them, so people get plenty of benefits in return. All in all, this seems like a fair deal to most people. There isn't much resistance to the 10% faith contribution.
Fucking everything. I love how, like, one of the funny things is that he's done in both of these videos is that, like, people's natural inclination is that, like, taxes are just good. He just assumes at every point that, like, oh, it's a fair deal. People love taxes. They love paying taxes. They voluntarily choose to pay taxes. Like, his assumption is that people will just pay for anything, that they'll agree to any contract so long as someone is, like, the right person for his scenario. It's so fucking weird.
Since the population's majority are believers who obviously accept it. The rest of the people, the faithless degenerates, are mostly kept silent by the majority's chilling effect and Stefan's newly founded religious police. As the Federation grows,
now we're just burning crosses.
Yeah, he's just trying to throw as much, like, provocative imagery in as possible.
This is, you know what, AdamSomething, I'm clapping for you right now. I'm clapping. I want you to know that, like, the ridiculous fucking memes that you've pulled off as a presumed debunking of anarcho-capitalism, I can tell full force that that you're not interested in debate. You're not interested in intellectual pursuits. You're not interested in, like, anything other than just the triggering and the memes, because that's what makes you money. You're an intellectual midget, and I applaud you for engaging in your self-masturbatory playing of a video game and turning it into a bunch of memes so that, like, AnCaps can get triggered and you can profit off of it. You know, like, honestly, it's fucking genius. It's fucking genius. It really is. It has nothing to do with anarcho-capitalism, and it's like there's no real need to debunk it at this point, because he's taken the meme to such a degree that anyone watching obviously understands that this is just him memeing and trying to insult people to trigger them as much as possible. And honestly, it's kind of funny. I applaud you. You played the fucking game, and he fucking won, because, you know, his idiotic idea. Oh, I forgot to cut on the emote wall. I apologize, guys. I cut it off when people were doing I cut it off when people did the hate raid against us from, like, the blue guy or whatever.
That's fair.
Right, because they were just spamming emotes to try and, like, cover the screen. Who is the god in this theocracy? Oh, it's the called Atlanteanism, but the god is Ayn Rand. And she preaches anarcho-capitalism, but none of the tenets of anarcho-capitalism or objectivism, mind you.
Both in terms of territory and economy. Even towns that aren't its members are asked to pay the 10% contribution. If they don't, they are forbidden from doing any trade with the Holy Atlassian Federation. And people figure that a 10% contribution is still less than the potential losses should they get on the Federation's bad side. Missionaries accompany trade caravans to such neutral settlements, gradually turning their population into believers. Once they reach a majority, they must petition to join the Federation, as ordained by Holy Island Stefan's most recent dream, ruling over an immense area.
The welfare check raid. Which is some guy that got mad at me on Twitter because I dared call Vosh. It's just some Voshite streamer that I guess was mad that I called out Vosh for being pro-war.
And having ultimate control over businesses and money, Stefan Montreux crowns himself God King of the Atlassian Empire, the state which will correct the mistakes of the Roman.
And I asked him if he needed a welfare check, and he said, you believe in welfare. And I was like, that's actually kind of funny. I appreciate that.
Empire and bring humanity to a new golden age. To avoid the degenerate fate of the Romans, women are banned from working and arranged marriages are mandated for everyone. Also, the age of consent gets lowered significantly. Seditious ideas. So
then we threw in age of consent. We threw in mandatory marriages and enforced monogamy. Like, it's just every meme he can think of that doesn't apply or isn't usually thrown at the left.
Ideas such as taxes, welfare, or social programs are banned, all to protect the purity of anarcho-capitalism. People who break the rules are branded arseholes and are banished or sentenced to years of forced labor. Okay, alright. So, what do we have here? Seems like our second attempt at simulating an AnCap utopia has netted us a theocracy. So I suppose with this video I wanted to show you how anarcho-capitalism doesn't account for things like religion. And the real problem with mixing religion and capitalism is that the former can become a parallel structure of coercion, and it can very much take control of...
You've not shown any of those things. You've memed. And you've memed well, sir.
Capitalism through the believers. With publicly funded, secular, and mandatory education, however, it is more than possible to prevent the emergence of cults. And I don't know about you, but...
This is fucking no!
Whether or not let lunatics like Stefan Molyneux run amok in society. I guess I'm just weird like that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and do check out my Patreon if you think this content is worth your money. And I'll be seeing you...
Oh man, that was
Well, that
good.
was a great straw man.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty funny. I mean, it doesn't resemble anything of the philosophy. It's not a debunking or anything. It was just memes. The first one seemed like he was maybe trying to. He just doesn't understand economic theory, and saw how much hate clicks he got. So he decided to make like an entire meme video to just insult AnCaps and trigger them for more hate clicks. Kind of one of those things, I guess, where like you get more and more provocative as a means of getting attention because you can't make any good ideas. Because AdamSomething, I guess, isn't smart enough to be able to debunk Anarcho-Capitalism. So like, why not just meme?
Savage.
How do you remain on Twitter without descending into nihilism? I'm convinced that that is the purpose of that app. Because I need to move the brand forward.
He's, as we used to say in the army, motivated, downright motivated.
Right? Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that took longer than I thought. Oh my God. That was, I don't even know what to say. Like that, like actually kind of fucked me up in a way. Like it was just so fucking stupid and so mind-numbingly full of like just memes and random bullshit that it like sapped me. I can't imagine putting that much time and effort into making a series of derpy videos like that. It's fascinating to me, but not due to the subject matter. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to say. So you just watched a clip from our Twitch channel, Fabian Liberty. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Fabian Liberty.